Welcome everyone to the September public hearing and regular meeting for the Planning Commission of Bergen Town. The time is 5:30. And that is our start. We're going to start our meeting tonight with a pledge of allegiance led by Mr. Kent Peterson. So everyone will be standing.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And is his audio working? Larry, can you hear me? Larry, can you unmute?
Yes, I can hear you.
And Larry and Crystal, if Larry has a question or a comment and he uses the raised hand icon, could you let me know that his hand is raised? Yeah. Thank you. Did you hear that, Larry?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
All right. And next is our declaration of conflicts of interest and any ex parte contacts on any item in the agenda. And let's start with Lee. None. Kent?
None.
Darlene? None. Karen?
What are we doing?
Ex parte and conflicts of interest.
No conflicts of interest in agenda items today.
All right, thank you. All right. And
None-
then.
None for me either.
Okay, thank you for doing that, Larry. I apologize.
Sorry.
And then next, has everyone had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes,
Yes?
I move we approve the minutes of August 12th as presented.
I'll second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 5 ayes. And at this point, we are at open forum, which is for any member of the public to comment for up to 3 minutes about anything not on our agenda. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to do so at this time? Take that as a no. Yes, yes, absolutely. Just remember to state your name.
I'm looking at the newsletter, and I'm not sure if this is on the agenda because I don't remember it all. But when did we get this swap of properties and this rezoning and all that? When did they get rezoned?
The rezone was 4 or 5 months ago. And then it was decided that, there was going to be a development deal. Before that development deal was signed, which would have turned that piece of property into commercial. The land swap came in, and so where the old town's maintenance yard is on Highway 9
Yeah,
was changed to commercial, and that
that was actually on an agenda somewhere. I didn't see
a few
that.
months back.
Huh?
This happened a while ago,
Yeah, I don't remember.
and it was just finalized. That's why it was in the newsletter.
Okay. Cause I don't know, it just sounded like all of a sudden somebody did it. And
No, it's been going on for several months.
okay.
All right. Now, commissioner comments. Does any commissioner have a comment on anything, Karen? So I'm hearing this time. You have any comments this month?
Anything additional?
Just commissioner comments. Okay, thank you. Ken? Lee? No. And Darlene? No, not this month. All right, and at this time. Oh, Larry, do you have any commissioner comments?
None, thank you.
All right. Thank you. I'm writing your name. Ask Larry. Okay, there you go. I need your little face on the owl thing, so I know you're there. Okay, so let's move on. Commissioners, the very last item has to do with discussion of conditional use permit for Unplugged Resorts. Informal is not on a public hearing. And our zoning administrator, Jane Roddy, is here to do that. So I thought maybe if it's okay with the commission, I would like to move that item rather than the last item to right now before we start a public hearing. Is that okay with the commissioners? Lee?
I'll move me to do that.
Move the item up. Okay, and did we have a second?
Did we miss the motion to close?
No, I want to do this before.
Okay. Second.
All right. And Larry, do you understand what I just said? Did that come through?
No, I'm not sure what we're doing. We've moved an
So-
item.
Yeah, so that our zoning administrator can make his presentation at the start of the meeting, whether then at the end of the meeting,
And which item are we moving up?
the very last item,
5.
under the public meeting.
The discussion for conditional use for unplugged resort? Okay,
Yeah, it's a presentation by Mr. Grady.
okay,
Is that okay?
sounds great.
All right, Cameron? You good with that? Okay, at that point, Ken seconded it, and everybody's for it, but nobody voted except for. He didn't. Oh, I didn't. Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Councilor, for your vote. I changed my vote.
So this is preliminary because the applicant, at the behest of the applicant, they wanted to at least present this to you guys early, so this isn't ready yet. But he's asked that you guys at least have a heads up, and I'm kind of glad for the opportunity, because then if there's glaring items on here that you'd like us to address in the CUP, we can do it. You should have received a timeline of kind of how this project has begun and where it's at.
Is this doing?
This project is taking place on a parcel just to the south of where Monty Lutz lives, next to the Mesa Road. The maps are, the site plans and whatnot are all in the office if you want to see those. The conditional use permit, we've started the recommendations on. There's some things that we need to work through before we write it, based on agreements between property owners. And making sure that everybody's on the same page before this gets sent off to the attorney, and we'll hopefully be back next month if he can review and put his stuff on it. For you guys to review and add anything that you want onto it as well. So, but if there were things that were glaring that you wanted me to add on tonight, I thought take the opportunity to do it. And to answer any questions you might have on the actual project. Is everybody familiar with the project, or kind of know what it's about? It's it's fairly small, I don't even remember how many domes are in it, but they're geodome vacation rentals. This was started back in 2023 and then kind of got put on the burner, or put off the side of the burner while he went through all the processes for the state. And has come back up again, and we're working through it now. Yeah, little swimming pool. We hope to do small events there, and has made overtures with Mr. Lutz since it's adjoining their property. That's kind of where we're at. Some of the things that we've put in place for CUP are to put fast growing vegetation between him and SR9 to make it less visible, and then we'll be discussing lighting, signage, and all of those things to come to agreements with him. And to put anything that we feel is missing from the current ordinances. So everything that's in the ordinances is applicable, but where we've changed ordinances, there's some stuff that's important to the town. Obviously, lighting and signage have changed since he started. And so we will work with him to put that stuff into the CUP to find a middle ground. That's kind of where we're at right now. There's not a lot to it other than just to present the timeline, because we don't have anything to present yet, so. But he asked us to do it.
Do we have any pictures, any visuals?
Just in the office, I don't have them. There's site plans there, and Crystal and Shai, I can show you.
Okay. Do they have any concept of small events? What's a small event?
At this point, that's undetermined. He just mentioned that in one of our DRC meetings, that he wanted to do weddings and small events. So that's TBD on, we'll be putting that into the CUP as well.
Can we, I'm thinking that we may want to, going into another topic briefly, the water conservation ordinance that we are going to adopt, the material that came with that suggested that Virgin is one of the only towns in the pooling agreement that doesn't limit swimming pool size. So I think we may want to put some kind of limit on it, so it might be good to say, we're gonna work on that, and please respect whatever it is that we come up with for a commercial swimming pool. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that they had, again, I'm just going off of months ago when I looked at his changes, but they had a pickleball court and they removed the pickleball court, and put a swimming pool in there. It's not massive. I think it's just for their guests and keeping it fairly small, but that is a concern. It was not enough of a change to alter their ERCs. So they have to get all this approval through the Washington County Water Conservancy District as well, so they've been looking at that. They've had to make some changes, which is again, their application isn't completed, but the CUP isn't completed either, so he just wanted to be on the agenda and figured that would be probably best to at least present kind of what he's doing, so you've got a heads up for when it comes in the month.
Kind of nice to know ahead of time. But we appreciate you taking
Sure.
your time to do this.
Any other questions for me on it?
I do not at this point.
Well, you guys know where I work, so
Yeah.
if something comes up, just let me know.
And so you anticipate we might have something to look at?
It all depends on the attorney. So
Okay.
we're just gonna present all of the recommendations that we come up with as an administrative group to the attorney after working through with Monty Lutz and others to make sure everybody's happy. Because of the agreement with Monty Lutz, if Monty were to back out of that agreement, then that changes everything in the Unplugged project. Setbacks were relaxed based on agreements recorded at the recorder's office between those two. So we have to make sure that that's gonna stand before we send this to.
Is this an off the grid project? Just by
I
the
don't
name
think so.
unplugged?
No, it used to be called the Flying Monkey Project,
Yeah.
and I think he just decided he wanted something that didn't sound so silly to outsiders.
All
No,
right.
it is pretty low key
Are
though.
you using glass stoves?
What's that?
Glass stoves?
No, no, I think they're canvas.
Larry, do you have any questions for Mr. Grotti on this topic?
No, this is all brand new to me, so I am curious to go downtown and look at the drawings.
Shiloh's got all that there, so welcome to come in.
And we are welcome to look at that.
Absolutely. Yeah, the more you guys know about, the easier it'll be to consider anything that we might be missing. When you're prepping for the CUP stuff, we'll write stuff in that we feel needs to be addressed. CUPs are funny because you can't be arbitrary or capricious, but we want to catch things that are not covered in our ordinances that we feel are important, so.
Or that conflict with yours,
Right, or they conflict, which could happen.
which is what my question is about to be about. Just wondering, these setback adjustments, are they in line with the ordinance?
Yeah, so we have in the ordinance that two property owners desire to have their properties closer, or want to relax that the town honors that. That was done a long time ago based on that one up there by camera. And so Monty Lutz liked the idea of having them close. He already has a sound wall in place. He said, no skin off my back. And he did some of his own, I guess you could say, unofficial CUP agreements with Unplugged, saying, I would like you to do this so that I'm not affected, and in turn, I'll allow you to go closer. So,
Okay, great.
but just to display everything out there, throw everything out there. That was with the pickleball court in. Once they changed it and said we want to do a pool, that kind of has the potential to nullify that agreement. So we're meeting with them tomorrow morning to ensure that things are still good as recorded, so that somebody doesn't back out at the last minute. We've spent all this time. So, anyway, tomorrow morning we'll have more information and get this CUP for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So now, before we close the public hearing to open the public meeting, it is our custom, I guess it's becoming a routine, that we give overviews of each item for the audience and for the listening audience as well. The first item up today is the Palmer zone change rate hearing. And we're, on this item, we're waiting to hear from our town attorney for confirmation that this rezone would fall under our current ordinance, which limits commercial uses to 400 feet off the highway. At the request of the town council, we are rehearing this item. The council had a question about whether this parcel would qualify for commercial uses beyond the 400 feet. And the town council wanted the public to have an opportunity to give input if this were the case. Okay, and then the K and K zone rechange is the property that is right to the east of the land swap property, am I correct? And it is not 400 feet deep.
It's 290 feet.
Yep, and if that, yeah, it's not that, yeah, that's the biggest part, yeah. And, so that is a pretty, I did not get the, and sure, during the hearing, we'll hear from you about information about that as well, and we'll learn more, okay? That one's pretty straightforward. And then we're going to be revisiting the open space. Now, the open space ordinance was approved, it passed town council. But we were charged, but they sent it back to us to amend it, so it's passed, but they want us to amend it by adding prohibited uses. And this was encouraged by the town attorney. And so we have a proposal out there, and there's a lot of proposed prohibited uses. And the thing I want to mention on this one is this is a start of a discussion on this topic. And some of those things may be removed, others might be added as we go through this, okay? And then that leaves the chapter 16 revision, which is our CUP chapter. And this is a second hearing, maybe it's third hearing on our agenda. In the past, it's been subject to previous public hearing. But in response to concerns brought up in those meetings and through our work meetings as a commission, we've made a few changes have been made, and the primary author of this one is Lee Ballard. And I have helped with this one as well, but she's primary. A requirement that our commission act quickly to confirm low impact uses has been added, and a couple of minor language changes have been made for clarity. To review, this ordinance makes a number of changes to our chapter 16, which is where our conditional use procedure is written. It includes the addition of low impact conditional use. Currently, if an applicant simply wishes to change from one use to another, the rules would require them to go through a public hearing and a DRC approval, which is burdensome for changes that have little or no impact on the community. This ordinance provides for low impact uses to be approved by a single nod from the planning commission. Conditional uses do allow the town greater enforcement options over uses that require compliance with specific standards. They also attach to land and therefore are a permanent record of those standards that will continue through changes in ownership. Permitted uses are more difficult to hold to town standards, and compliance with standards or changes in use may not survive changes in ownership. However, and this was explained in the first public hearing, when specific standards for a given use are sufficiently covered in our ordinance, many lower impact uses can safely be listed as permitted. And if adopted, this ordinance as it would make certain commercial area uses conditional as they once were. This may be controversial, so the following points are important to consider. Low impact conditional use permit adopted by this ordinance makes the process extremely simple for many applications. Any of these conditional uses may be listed as permitted once the town has adopted or amended standards specific to that use. Since the grant of a conditional use is an administrative decision, public input likely cannot be a factor in that decision. The planning commission may not deny an application unless some aspect such as a specific location makes compliance with town standards impossible, a very unlikely circumstance. So those are the 4 items for public hearing. And with that being done, I will take a motion to close the public meeting and open the public hearing.
I'll move we close the public meeting and open the public hearing.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you, Larry. All right, so with that, let's move on to items for comment. Now, item number 1, rehearing an ordinance amending Virgin Town's official zoning map by rezoning V-2-1-21-226, currently listed as rural residential to commercial. Is there any, we did give a letter on that. Everyone have a chance to look at that? So this is the rehearing item on what is colloquially called Palmer, the Palmer rezone. And is there anyone in the audience at this time who would like to address that topic?
My name is Pat Galvez, reside at 1420 West. So thank you for the opportunity to make public comment. I don't know all the factors of planning and zoning, nor do I know all the details of all the current ordinances. But I do have some facts and some opinions for your consideration. The issue of rezoning rural residential to commercial zone has become too common in Virgin. Currently on this case for this property -226, or the next case for property 311, so I don't have to read this twice. And for many past and possibly other future requests to change more rural residential or rural residential zones to commercial zones, it just keeps happening. Has there ever been a case where a commercial zone was requested to be changed to a residential zone? Likely not. Why would a person purchase a higher value commercial zone parcel and then purposely want to downgrade it to a lower residential parcel? The trend in Virgin has been and continues to be people purchasing lower value residential parcels, but not existing or available higher costing commercial or HRZ parcels. Then they request a zone change on the residential to the higher value commercial status. They see an opportunity to make a gain, a business venture. But their venture's gain is a cost and a detriment to nearby residents. Is this what the residents of Virgin want? I've looked at the codes, 16.40 commercial zones. In section 0.06 location, it reads, commercial zone designation is available along SR9 frontage, extending west from Pocketville Road to the furthest west town border, excluding any BLM property. In section 0.08 permitted uses, it lists 15 permitted uses, ranging from professional business offices to churches. Now, just because a parcel may be on SR9 and have frontage, it's west of Pocketville Road, and it's suggesting a permitted commercial use is on the table. That should not mean, since it fits the location definition and it fits the permitted use, that the town should automatically approve or feel obligated to approve or feel defenseless to resist the request. For any business adventure that's requesting to change to a commercial zone. I've attended past town meetings in past years where I recall that some council or some commission members concluded if the shoe fits, wear it. Or in other words, if the zone change situation meets these definitions, then it has to be allowed or changed. And that the council or commission cannot justifiably deny this requested change. I asked earlier, is this what the residents of Virgin would want? This brings up to me the Virgin Town General Survey, the resident survey summary, which was conducted last November, December, and presented at June's Planning Commission regular meeting. Several of the survey's questions and topics support what concerned residents residing in both residential and rural residential zones wish to see in our town. Here are some of those survey questions I've picked out and the results. I see are pertinent to zone changes from residential to commercial. Question 2 asks, what is your vision for Virgin in the next 10 to 20 years? I summarize, well, not in this question, but 68% people chose their vision was a small rural residential town with some commercial development. Question 18 asks to pick the types of land use development that are important as Virgin grows. Agricultural was 18, residential 25, combined that's 43. Commercial, retail shops, restaurants, industrial, that combined 31. So 46% is higher than 31% for agricultural and residential. Question 29, how would you rate the availability of housing in Virgin? Combining no available housing or some availability housing is a combined 93%. So I have to ask, with any zone changes from residential to commercial, how is less residential property going to help this issue of housing availability in Virgin? Question 48 was, why did you choose to live in Virgin? This survey offered 15 choices of living in Virgin, asking residents to rate very important down to not important, or possibly undecided. I'm presenting 4 of these 15 choices or reasons that were pertinent to this topic. Less congestion, quiet, rural, and sparse population. Combining the residents that picked very important and important versus those on the other side of the pendulum. Here are the results for these 4 selected reasons. 91% chose less congestion. 96% chose quiet. 98% chose rural. 87% chose sparse population. You do a weighted average on very important and important from the concerned citizens, 93% is the average on those 4 topics. Thus, I ask you again, why has Virgin Town government repetitively changed or allowed or worked to change residential or rural residential into commercial? The residents living here convincingly want less congestion. They want quiet, they want rural, and they want sparse population. The commission and the council don't have to agree with every developer or commercial business interest just because the shoe fits. Residents have shoes also. Our town government should primarily represent the citizens that reside here, not represent the interest of ventures that want to operate within the town at the expense and the detriment of the residents. In summary, maintaining residential zones and not increasing commercial zones will meet the visions desired by the 68% majority of a small rural residential town. They'll meet the land use types desired by the 43% majority of Virgin grows. They'll meet the very limited availability of housing recognized by 93% of residents by keeping residential zones in existence and not changing to commercial zones. They'll meet the very important and important reasons to live in Virgin, the combined 93% majority of residents living here for less congestion, for quiet, for rural settings, and for sparse populations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
I'll give you a copy.
Are there any other comments on this item? Remember to say what?
Just a quick, Garrett Twitter, 1575 West 50 South. Lane knows we should always take revenge. I think the campaigns that I've been here, for as long as I've been here, every election campaign has been on less commercial. Keeping it quiet, you know, all the things that he just said. And every time when the election's over, we keep going back to more commercial, and just kind of ignoring what people voted for. All the way down the line, and at some point, that's gotta stop. You know, are we electing the wrong people? Is that what's going on here? We gotta live up to those campaign promises, which was, you know, 400-foot limit, which Mike Tyson doesn't go anywhere close to that. We gotta live up to the less commercial. We gotta live up to these things, these promises, and not be like the politicians in Washington, okay? Anyway, that's my whole spiel. Every time we have an election, somebody's campaigning less commercial, and then right away we go right back to that same game, so I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe there is one. Please remember to state your name.
My name is Jared Bates. I'm the engineer representing the property owner. And just the fact that we were here a month ago to discuss this project. The purpose of the zone change is to provide commercial development along the highway here. The idea was to provide services that are currently present in town. They looked at, you know, restaurants, grocery stores, things that are built to provide services for the residents. And so that's the main purpose of the zone change. You know, understand the topic of that.
Thank you, Mr. Bates. Is that
Yes.
exactly that? BATES?
Yeah, that's correct.
Are there any other comments from the public on this topic? All right. So the next item then is item number 2, an ordinance amending Virgin Town's official zoning map by rezoning parcel B-2-1-22-311 from rural residential zone to commercial zone. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to address that topic? Please remember to state your name.
Name is Greg Bates. I live on the property adjacent to the proposed change property on the north side. That's my house. And I've lived, so I moved here 16 years ago. I lived in Salt Lake. I had a place outside of town, which the back property line backed up to fields. Later, that got changed to commercial, and commercial buildings were built. What that looked like from my viewpoint is at 4 a.m. a large truck rolls in, picks up the dumpsters, shakes them out, and slams them back down on the asphalt, raising me out of bed. Of course, there's more than one business there, so there are different dumpsters with different companies, and so this happens several times a week. Anywhere from 4 to 4:30 a.m. That's my experience with changing residential to commercial. I moved here 16 years ago. It's a small, quiet town, and I totally get that the properties around mine are somebody else's. I don't control that. I didn't worry too much because they were all zoned rural residential, 1 acre minimum. What has actually happened is on the north side of my property is now subdivision with properties that are 1/3 of an acre. Some of them are a little bigger. The ones that are bigger have casitas on them, which I get the town calls them casitas. The reality is it's a whole nother house with another family. It's far from 1 acre minimum. On the other side, which is what's now being proposed to change to commercial, is what is turned into essentially a strip mine at this point. I was told that when the digging began, it would be sloped gradually away from my property to prevent erosion. What is actually happening is 3 feet from the property line, there's a near vertical drop 10 feet deep.
that's where my leach field is, putting water into the ground there, which would be fine as long as the property below that was still there to help hold it in place. It's now gone. I'm not really sure why that part of my yard hasn't yet slid away. I'm told what will be there, sharing my property line, is a road, which will put a road on the north side and the south side. If I decide to move, what's that going to do to my property value? Who's gonna wanna move into a house with a road on the front and the back, and on the other side of the road will be a commercial building with dumpsters being emptied at 4 AM and who knows what other kind of noise is going on. Additionally, I'm sure that throughout the construction of this, there's going to be issues with noise, dust. When the roads were put in on the north side, it was pretty much a daily issue where I would come out to my vehicles, and if I didn't know what color they were to begin with, I wouldn't be able to tell by how thick the dust was on top of it. So that's my experience with having this being built right around my property. I'm not sure why it is we have a master plan when anytime a developer wants to make a change, it just magically happens. So that's my viewpoint. I would ask that the council look out for the residents rather than the developers, and not just basically give the residents the messy end of the stick. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Are there any additional comments on this topic?
Yeah, my name is Pat Galvez from 1420 West. Because these first two items are the same issue, rural residential to commercial request. Everything I said the first time can go to the second one. But I wanted to back, is it Mr. Burt? Bates, yes. I bought my property in '99, and the first thing I did before I bought it was look at the zoning of the town. I wanted to be surrounded by residences. There was commercial property that I made the choice to buy property away from commercial property. And then when things come and they change, there is commercial or highway resort zone existing in this town. It's not all developed yet. And your points are totally valid. We moved here to enjoy some peace and quiet. And the game had rules, we followed the rules, we abided by the rules, and then changes, and they changed the rules, they changed the zoning, they bring in the businesses. And they changed the zoning. Don't change the zoning. Leave it the way it was, because we all had about 26 years of my vision to not be around congestion. And then somebody comes in with more money than I have and influence, and they say they're gonna bring in services. Your service is 5 miles down the hill. I'm fine with that. That's why I moved here. I don't want dumpsters before me. So I back this man and everything he said. Leave the zoning, don't change. There's plenty of commercial zoning for the town. People just need to use that. And leave the rest of us alone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Galvez.
Well, Dr. Matzler, KNK Family IC. I understand the concern of these residents. But the fact of the matter is, this property's been owned by the same family for 50 years. And sorry, good. He bought my wife's family's house that she grew up in. And that's the house right there. Kind of on 9. And we want to be good neighbors. Sounds like we haven't been good neighbors. And I wasn't aware until I saw you here tonight that the dirt removal is the problem. But the reason we're rezoning this is it's a smaller piece of property. All the bigger pieces of commercial in town are 8 acres, 11 acres. This is ideal for a smaller commercial development. It may even be more than one, we don't know. But it's bordered across the street by commercial. I have another map that shows there's commercial all in that area. It makes sense to cluster.
And it's the best practical use of that property. I heard some talk about the survey and agricultural, people want agricultural. There aren't very many people in this town that can make a living off of agriculture. You can ask the Spenlows, you can ask anybody. It's not like you can make a bunch of money unless you have a feedlot. And I don't think anybody wants feedlots for the county. So, so we're here requesting this zone change. It's a smaller parcel. It was actually, it's been planned for quite some time. We wanted to do more high density housing. We wanted some smaller lots so families could build homes. And that's what happened with our subdivision there. We did not put any deed restrictions on, we're not aware. It was not our intention for people to build 2-story houses and push the boundaries of the setbacks. So I have to live across the street from it too. So if anybody would have a complaint, it'd be the person that built it. I can see those houses all day long too. Anyways, that's my comments on it. And we're just here for a zone change. We're not asking for any kind of development or any kind of business license, just as it qualifies.
There's no, well, the location ordinance has changed, so that is. It qualifies. It's in an area that could have, but it's not required to have. I want to be clear on that.
I didn't say it was required, I said it qualifies. So, thank you.
Just wanted to be clear. Thank you, Mr. Massler. Anyone else? All right, well, thank you. Moving on to the next item. That is the amendment to the open space ordinance that the town council has passed, adding prohibited uses, and this was done at the request of our town attorney and town council. So we were charged to do this for them. Is there any, and like I said, this is a starting point. We as a commission will be discussing these thoroughly, and one of the pluses of our commission is, I must say, we have a wide diversity of views. And so we get a lot of different types of ideas and. But is there anybody in the audience who would like to comment on that? The prohibited uses in the open space, the ordinance amending Title 16 of the Virgin Municipal Code to amend and number the chapter governing open space district. And there's just a few changes.
I can see the changes without you scrolling down.
Oh, yeah, it's on page 2, yeah. All right. All right. Okay, so. And then the fourth item for public hearing is the second hearing for ordinance amending Virgin Municipal Code Title 16, Chapter 16, to make certain currently permitted uses conditional, provide streamlined process for low impact conditional use permits, change the titles of 2 sections to include permitted use standards, and amend the conditional use approval process. Is there anybody who would like to speak to this topic?
My name is Tom Lacoste, and I have a few thoughts on this one. The last time you had this ordinance, there was basically the title of it was a little different, and now the title is much broader. And I would encourage anybody to look at lines 47 through 52. which you mentioned basically are taking certain permitted uses in commercial and making them conditional until you get rules and regulations for them. And for example, one of them is listed as a restaurant and whatever. And I hope, I'm not sure if this has been discussed very extensively, but it's a step in a direction to cut down on permitted uses. And if I wanted to do a restaurant, for example, these are the ones that are listed here, one of them is a restaurant. If I wanted to go in right now and do a restaurant, request one, it's permitted, I can go ahead. With this being taken out of the permitted use area and actually only subject to conditional until the rules and regulations are in place, could be problematic, but maybe you've all discussed that. It kind of jumped out at me because, by the way, I do appreciate the titles. They're much more clear as to what the content is on the ordinance. But I wanted to mention that one, that could be problematic, that section. And lastly, the last time I was here, I mentioned your standards. And if you look at line 412 on the ordinance, your standard town goals. It says encourage addition of long-term rentals and affordable homes. Encourage addition of them. And I'm really, I heard that many times. We need housing. We need to create housing for people. And I hope as you look today at other items on the agenda, that you actually do something to encourage that and not discourage it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Nahas. Is there anybody else who has a comment on this item? All right. If there are no further comments, I would take a motion to close the public hearing and reopen the public meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Cameron. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lee. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Larry. All right. Okay, so now we also have 4 items on our discussion and possible motion and vote, okay? And the first one is the rehearing on the Palmer rezone, to get that pulled up again. And I tried to clarify why this is up for a rehearing again in my opening statement. I hope that was clear. Does any commissioner have a question about my explanation?
Repeat it.
The reason why I back up again is because there's question of whether the 400-foot limit from the highway applies. And so they wanted to rehear it with the understanding that the 400-foot limit may not apply for this particular property because of the time frame, I'm guessing, in which they started the process.
When you say time frame, for what?
They probably started this rezone process before that 400-foot rule was put in place. And so they're checking to see whether that 400-foot rule would apply. That's why it was redone.
Okay. Does anyone have any point of discussion or needs for clarification or this, or need any further explanation from Mr. Bates?
I just want to kind of emphasize that, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that everybody on the commission thought that the 400-foot rule would apply in this case. When we all voted, did we all vote? I can't remember who voted how.
We did not vote. We have not voted on this.
Yes, we
Oh,
did.
yeah.
Yes, we did.
Just a-
You were at the training. It was, 3 aye, 1 nay. Cameron was, you were, yeah, you were doing something important.
Now I understand that we're awaiting, a memo from the attorney, which will tell us I mean, personally, I believe this is a discretionary decision, if we wanted to condition our approval of something that we legally, I think we could, but anyway, whatever, I guess we will find out.
What is the depth of this property?
It goes as far as 850 or so.
Let me see. It goes up to 890
Oh, wait, I did.
on the east side and 724 on the west side at its deepest. And at its narrowest on the west side, it's 394. Any comments? Does anyone need anything clarified?
So if the question is that the 400-foot ordinance wasn't available,
It probably wasn't passed.
It wasn't,
Probably wasn't
notice, yeah.
it was not passed. It has not been passed.
It has been passed, but their initial email or request, something like that,
It was a year ago.
You want to clarify that?
yeah,
Please.
go ahead.
Sure. Sorry, we had submitted the zone change, it's been over a year ago. And I guess there was a technicality about having to split the property into two different parts to still request the zone change. Because the property is much larger than what we're requesting the zone change on. And so we had to go through that, we had to request the zone change, it's been over a year ago. We submitted it and it's set back and forth with this, with the town for over a year. So the time we submitted the zone change, this still wasn't applicable. And I think where you're at now is the attorney with this was concerned, he wanted to clarify if the rule, if it's applicable or not.
Yeah,
So that's the question tonight. I think the idea was supposed to have the public comment concerning that specific point. I don't think that was even an issue that was not.
so according to this proposal, we're assuming that the new ordinance would not apply and that commercial uses could be done on all of the land. Is that correct?
Keep that possibility. so
Yes.
in mind.
And when we voted at our last meeting, our understanding, because we didn't yet know the history, that the new ordinance would apply, because that's when we first saw it. So, does that make sense? And so I wanted the public and the town council wanted the public to give the opportunity to give input on this other option, rather than just pass it with an understanding by some that it was 400 and then say, oh my goodness, it's now allowed to be much.
And go all the way back to what's already developed residential.
Yeah,
Does this property go back to what's already developed residential?
within 100 and so feet.
And it seems like it does on,
And on the east side, yes.
On the east side, like, can you see a map? Is there a map? Sorry, my computer died.
there it is.
So you're talking, oh, so that little tiny corner,
And then over here,
well, that's commercial.
Do you want this on that?
there's homes there.
That's the zone map right there.
Buffalo Trails.
Not all of those.
Yeah. People behind Buffalo Trails and people that own Buffalo Trails. Go back to the other map.
This,
Go back to the other map. And that's the people that own Buffalo Trails.
But it is residential.
Yeah, but it's the little Buffalo Trails, there's one house there.
So at this point, do we know what the attorneys are?
we don't, the map has not been received.
Can we do a conditional Motion. Decision, I don't see,
So they already have a recommendation that they already have your recommendation, if it's 400, then it was a 3-1 vote. They already have that,
yes,
all they're asking for is another recommendation.
Just if it's all the way back.
I would just,
okay,
the recommendation.
all right.
Should I make a motion?
So, before you make a motion, I'd like to address a couple of things, if that's okay. Just a couple of comments. Because I think it's kind of important. So we had Pat, he left, unfortunately. Start. I just wanted to give a brief history on why we see these rezones quite often and why they're from rural residential to commercial. And that is because when the town adopted zoning stuff, they made almost the entire town rural residential. And when they started implementing commercial properties along the highway in locations, rather than doing what most towns do and just rezoning those properties, they decided instead to adopt a general plan that would recommend those properties for zone change if they ever came up, but allow them to stay as they were and just do it as they came. So instead of the town rezoning broad sections of the town into commercial, they just left everything the way it was. And they let people come in and do it when they wish. And so that's why you always see the zone changes from residential to commercial. That's why you see, that's why the general plan is so important. You'll see, if you've noticed in other towns, when they've made big changes and they're trying to rezone large parcels, you'll see like in Hurricane not long ago, they actually end up having to go in before they can make a zone change, they have to modify their general plan. So when they had a big development that wanted to go in like that cowboy thing, they wanted to come into Hurricane. You saw the first thing on Hurricane's agenda when Hurricane wanted to take it up. The first thing that came up on their agenda was to modify the general plan to allow that to go into the area that that property wanted to go into. You don't see that with Virgin because Virgin's general plan has, at least for the last 10 or so years, allowed for commercial properties in these locations. That's why you don't see Virgin have to redo their general plan when they want to make zone changes, like other municipalities tend to do. So I wanted to address that with Pat. And then on this letter that we got, I'm not sure who it's from.
It's
Oh, here it is, at the bottom, whole list of people. So there's some concerns listed on here. None of them are specific to the extension. But they did list on here the oh yeah. They listed on here, the driveways onto SR9, which is what SR9 wants to do, is close those driveways to make things more efficient on and off the road. And they also talked about UDOT project on here, which is pretty interesting, but I think UDOT's next project is actually, it's not through the middle of town. I think it's on the other side of town. Yeah, I mean, they do have the in-town schedule, but that's probably gonna be closer to 2050 area time range.
They do have a valid concern, and they reference the general plan that says, accesses off of Highway 9, and they're concerned. This is the density house, that's right, is that there is a unofficial proposed map. I looked for that, and I haven't found that now, with an entry into commercial off of Sheep Bridge, and there's concern about that. And I feel that's a valid concern.
No, I agree, that's a very valid concern, and that's something that when the development starts to go in, that they're gonna have to address. So for example, Zion White Bison has an entrance clear down at the bottom of the town, but it's for emergency use only. It's kept locked with a fire lock. So it's an emergency exit that is a very likely possibility for any access on the Sheets Bridge Road.
Well,
So,
and that,
I don't think that plays what I'm saying is, sorry, not to interrupt, I was in the middle of a thought. But what I'm saying is, I don't think that plays a huge difference into a reason.
and just because of my personal experience with commercial access into my residential neighborhood, I would have to just guess I have a different view of that. I think it is a very valid concern.
I didn't say it wasn't valid, I'm just saying that's a concern that should be addressed. The development stage.
I'm concerned enough about, especially having heard from people both tonight and previous hearing, who live near where this, commercial ground would be, that I think until we can be assured that no commercial uses will go beyond the 400 feet from the highway, I could not, vote on this, but I would move to deny, at this point. Simply because of the possibility that it may, have commercial use going way back into, residential property, further than the town has decided to ever let it go, so, yeah.
And,
Make that motion.
yes,
Larry.
yes, Larry.
Yes, so, sorry about that. I'm sorry I'm
No.
remote, but I've had my hand up for a little while, wanted to discuss this. I just want to make it clear that I don't feel obligated to vote on every piece of property that wants to zone to commercial from rural residential, to automatically make it commercial, but it's reasonable to expect that the busiest street in our town is where our commercial is going to be located. And this one happens to be on the two busiest corners, or the two busiest streets in our town. It's the highest and best use for that piece of property. It's probably the most desirable piece of commercial property in the town because of where it's at. It's surrounded by commercial on the east and on the west, and across the street. There is part of it that backs up to some residential, but we have standards that say you can't build within 40 feet of that, you have to put a wall up. So we have some standards for that. So I would like to move that we adopt the ordinance amending, excuse me, Virgin Town's official zoning map by rezoning V-2-1-21-226 to commercial.
I have not asked for a motion.
I don't.
Haven't, and I already made a
I
motion.
started my
gonna say,
motion
yeah.
before Cameron spoke, and then Lee started hers after I started mine, so.
No, I think what I need to ask for a motion.
I do not believe you are required to call for a motion for someone on the.
Well,
someone in the-
Because I like to make sure every commissioner has had a chance to speak. You know, so.
We can have discussion after.
You can have discussion after a motion is called.
So I have competing motions.
It's okay, we can vote on, if they're different, we can vote on different.
Yeah, so reiterate yours, Lee, and I'll have Larry reiterate his.
Okay, I want to say too, that I agree with Larry, that is a good place and, for a commercial, and, I don't object to changing some, rural residential to commercial when it's along the highway and sort of surrounded by other, like the commercial uses. It's just the depth that bothers me, and which is why I move to, deny this as it is right now. And the, caveat that if there were some way to assure that depth would be respected, then 400 feet, then I would don't totally agree with that.
I second.
Well, Larry's motion was first. I don't know why Larry's-
She made the motion first.
This is my second time making that motion.
She didn't actually say it.
I moved that.
She just said it, but.
She said it before Larry spoke.
I started mine, but I got interrupted, so
We can vote on both.
We may have to vote on it. You have to.
There's two motions on the table.
Well, there's a motion in a second.
So my understanding, and that's why I pointed out that Lee already made a motion. And then you said Larry has his hand up. That's the first I knew he had his hand up.
There, I didn't hear any motion. Did anybody else hear a motion?
From
Me.
At the very beginning.
Lee, yes.
Did anybody else hear a motion?
She said, I would move. That's right.
And then
That's
she
right.
was interrupted.
I would move to recommend denial, is what she was
I
saying.
thought they both started to make motion before they didn't finish. That's what I thought.
I think I said that, that's my motion, but maybe I didn't. Right now.
But I listened for those.
Sometimes it's a little unclear, because
Saying I would
sometimes,
recommend, or saying I would make a motion, it's two different ways.
sometimes Lee, you will say, I would move that, would you, and then it's not really a motion, and it kind of goes into a discussion. And so, I'm not saying you didn't make a motion, but on occasion during our discussions, sometimes you
And then-
do preface a comment with, I would move that,
Under certain.
without,
Like it's a
yeah.
conditional
Mhm.
statement.
Yeah, so, but I'm not saying you were doing that this time, I'm just saying sometimes, yeah.
I didn't mean it that way this time, but if you want to,
And then Larry,
Let Larry go first.
If you restate your motion.
so are we voting on Lee's or are we?
I want
is
to
this-
hear your motion as well.
So my motion was to recommend for adoption ordinance amending Virgin Town's official zoning map by rezoning lot V-2-1-21-226, currently rural residential to commercial zone.
Or did you mean adoption or approval, Larry?
Approval.
Okay.
So is that my official motion or you just wanted to hear what I was gonna say?
I would second that, if whatever we're doing here.
And then Cameron would be a second. It can go, so there are two opposing ones.
I think the results are gonna be the same either way.
I do.
I do too. So do either Lee or
You decide, you can say that I was not clear because I said I would move instead of I moved
okay,
and go with
Larry's
motion.
okay, I'd be fine with that. All right, so we're gonna go with Larry's motion. Can you repeat your motion again, Larry?
Yes,
There was a test.
Just say recommend.
I motion we approve the Ordinance amending Virgin Town's official zoning map by rezoning lot V-2-1-21-226, currently rural residential to commercial zone.
And Cameron, are you still seconding that?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And then Larry, how do you vote on that?
Aye.
Cameron?
Yes.
Darlene? No. Kent?
No.
Lee? No. So, Lee, would you still like to move forward with your motion? Or should we just send it to the council like this? I'm happy sending it to the council like this.
The motion fails. Again, there's nothing to send to the council.
That's true. With the recommendation.
The recommendation.
The recommendation is not to approve.
Okay, well,
All right.
yeah, I'll. need
There is
to-
no better piece of property suited for commercial in the town of Virgin than that corner. I can't believe that that did not pass. That is unbelievable to me.
But the reason was, Larry, is the depth of commercial, which is not what our residents want. And, I mean, that's where I was coming from. And that's what I heard a lot of from in the previous meeting and in this one.
Yes.
And I am not comfortable. I just am not comfortable with commercial that far in.
On the
Because
busiest
you have to-
intersection in
excuse
town.
me, Excuse me, you have to be comfortable with any commercial use at any part of that property. And we're working on improving our standards.
To open it up.
Because there's been some issues with what we currently have and how well they're working for our residents. And I think some of that was expressed tonight by some of the people who came up and spoke. They have direct impact knowledge of this. So, I agree, the section on the highway is, as you say, fine, but for me, I'm not comfortable with commercial going that route. And, it's not limited to the 400 is an issue for me.
I'd like to make a comment. I voted in favor of this as long as it wasn't 400 foot. And, my concerns about going beyond that are residential homes that are west of that, as well as a conservation area that is west of that. And I believe that commercial going that far back can greatly affect, if it did, I don't know that they're going to, we don't know that. And until we get a definite, until I get a definite that we have the 400 foot setback, then I wouldn't be willing to vote in favor to affect those residences and conservation easement.
Can I just say too, that I don't think this is a dead issue. I think that it's just not quite ready. And that, it's perfectly possible that I would vote differently if we had adopted like the overlay buffer that could make sure that the uses that were that far back were mild enough as far as impact goes to, surrounding residential that people would be okay with it. So anyway, I'm just saying, I still hope that we can work it out somehow.
And I'm going to allow Mr. Bates to make a brief comment.
Thank you so much. So just to clarify, we applied for this, it's been over a year ago. So the intention of the application that was done was to apply for the zone change. based on whatever the rules were currently. So there was no intention of trying to get past or doing differently. So at this point, my concern is, it took like a year to do this, change the parcel. So what I'm worried about is by changing the rule with string, my client has to go back there and change the parcel, and I'm gonna lose another year on this thing. But I think what would be reasonable is, I think the 4 foot, 100 foot buffer is probably negotiable. What we would like to be is, hey, don't make me change the parcel and go through this whole thing again to be able to change the zone, right? Because I'm losing another year. And I think that if that's the case, there's gonna be, I can see my client pursuing some legal matter on this thing. So I think what we'd like to is, hey, if we can negotiate what this boundary is based on the law, they're probably willing to do that, but not make them go through the parcel change scenario. Does that make sense?
It does, and I know that our, the town attorney doesn't like what he calls split zoning. But in this situation, I think that, I would certainly go for it.
I think the main point is that assurance that it's not going to go all the way back. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we're not making any decisions tonight. We're not making.
No, a recommendation.
So I would take all those concerns. Sure, whatever you want to tell us, but take
To the town.
that to the town council, take that to your attorney, take that to the town attorney, take that to the DRC, but. You know, that's really beyond us.
Gotcha. Well, that's right. I just wanted to express, hey, these guys are. Yeah, I want to make sure that we understand, hey, we want to work with the town. I think nobody's trying, we just don't want to be in the scenario.
And I think all of us have expressed a similar desire as well. But, you know, we do have a concern about it going very, very, very deep.
Gotcha. Okay, and I think that's something.
And if there can be some. And I think
Something creative to,
Yeah.
to, give the town assurance that.
so that would address some of the concerns of our residents, but also help you.
Right, so I think, so if I was in your position, I would probably say, well, you would condition the approval, allowing the applicant to adjust the boundary limitation to conform with the court and ordinance, if that was their position, and then allow them to pass versus going back through the process.
I don't think you'll have to repartition or anything like that.
This one.
I'd like us to toss back. We have a motion and a second on the table. I'd like to call us back and vote. I think the discussion has extended far beyond what was necessary to include that vote.
You want me to do that again?
Your motion, that you still have, there was a motion and a second that was made by you and seconded by Ken.
Okay, let's vote.
So what I had done, I had asked them both to repeat it, and then we decided to go with Larry's. But if it's the desire of the commission to also now, since this first one, was a recommendation for no. If Lee wants to formally restate her motion.
Okay, I will move that we recommend denial of this zone change. And you've heard my comments, so I won't go any further into that.
I second.
There was no caveat to that, there was no.
Just resubmitting what she said before.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, I've made my comments. I don't feel like this is the.
Okay, I have a motion to recommend denial. It was a motion by Lee Ballard and seconded by Kent. Lee,
Aye.
Larry,
No,
Cameron?
No.
Yes,
Yes,
I mean, excuse me, I'm a yes. I want it to nine. So can't you get it right? Did I get you right? I got me wrong, did I get you right? I had a very weird day. All right, so I have 3 ayes for a recommendation of denial and 2 noes on a recommendation of denial. It's the same thing. Correct?
Yes, actually.
All right. And then,
then back to the town council and we'll hash about. Like,
Yes.
correct, yeah, it's up to them.
Yeah, I don't know why we're spending a lot of time with it, it's gonna be up to them.
All right.
And if you send it back, don't answer.
They won't send it
I
back.
have to. I'm gonna add things here, see next, okay. All right. Number 2, ordinance amending title 16 of municipal code to amend and renumber chapter covering open space district. Now this one, with all these prohibited uses that we want to discuss, we can do that now, and we can actually vote on this now because this is the second time it's at a public hearing. The commission would feel better holding this one over to our work meeting for discussion. And then doing a final vote next month, that is also possible.
Because the open space one?
Yeah, because we're gonna focus on the prohibited uses, right? So,
Well, yeah, you did mention that also there's another change which
yes,
allows for, any parcel, any size parcel to rezone to that, which is
yes,
a concern of the council.
the concern of the
So-
council.
They didn't want to only allow large parcels to go open space, but allow the size parcel they wanted to.
So, Larry, what is your preference? Do you want to discuss this one now, or would you like to hold it over?
so I won't be able to attend the work meeting, so I won't be able to discuss it then. So,
Oh, okay, okay,
You could
we could start now,
add comments.
yeah.
So- my concern, or not, my thoughts are, this is all federal and state land, right?
Say that again, I didn't quite hear you.
Currently, our open space is only federal and state land, BLM and state trust land, right?
No, no,
With 1 or 2 other exceptions.
yeah.
Yeah.
And can we regulate BLM land?
It's in our values.
Yeah.
Because currently BLM allows off-road use in that area. The Jeep Tour business actually had a permit to operate back there. I take my side-by-side back there quite often, legally. And with this new ordinance, that would make that illegal. And
Why did you say that?
because it says the only use is hiking or biking.
Actually, if this would make it illegal, it's already illegal because.
It's legal now, but this
Yeah,
restricts
it is.
the only allowed use is hiking and biking.
It says trails for public recreation,
For hiking and biking.
recreational hiking, biking, and, well, this was the original ordinance, we got, right?
Yeah,
That
and it could be the reason that it was removed, that it didn't make sense to put more rules on federal land than that's already there, and not to eliminate uses that our town's residents are are using that land for. I mean, it is one of the big reasons that I love where I live is that I can easily jump on my side-by-side and go all the way to the north rim of the Grand Canyon if I want. But now I'd have to go down Sheep's Bridge and make a bunch of noise.
The thing is that those rules were already in place. It's, you know, we are adding prohibited uses and that's all of the discussion, but otherwise, the rules were already there. They just weren't listed in the ordinance.
Right, so they just called it open space and
Yeah,
then
so-
whatever the BLM decided they wanted to do with that land is up to them.
I hear your question and concern.
You gotta
And
also remember that BLM has dispersed camping on
Yeah.
out there too.
Yeah.
You just,
I'm wondering, okay, so I appreciate that comment and I'd like to investigate that more.
Yeah.
I think maybe we might need to talk to BLM. You know, and because you're not the only one, Larry, who uses those trails and, this is a good point. You will not be voting on this tonight. I think we need to investigate that.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up, Larry.
Yeah, one of the access points that was a county road was actually blocked for many of the residents of our neighborhood, or for anybody, I guess, for that subdivision that allows vacation rentals. Somehow that access became part of the development and not public use anymore, like it had been for 75 years as a county road. So we still have an issue with that. And so now we're required to go either all the way down to Sheep's Bridge to access that land or go through state trust land to get to that land.
So Larry, when you're home, can we talk more about this?
Yes.
Right, because I'd like to know where those spaces are, who uses them.
I'll take you for a razor ride.
Okay, yeah, I think it's a very good point. We do have a lot of residents who use very responsible use of, off-road vehicles. And if they are currently using them, they're using them responsibly, then I think we should consider.
I mean, if they're trails and not just
Yeah.
everything everywhere,
Yeah,
then we
Yeah.
could grapple with it.
yeah.
Whatever.
So thank you, Larry. I appreciate that. Okay.
Yeah, and
Give me a call.
BLM has a very strict set of rules for off-road use on their property. You can't just go drive out across the desert. You got to use established roads, and
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
there is still an issue of trying to enforce that, but I bet
Yeah.
there's probably 10 side-by-sides in my neighborhood that use that land. And I know that, well, at least the ones that I know use it responsibly. So I'd hate to lose that.
And I know I have my neighbors who do so in other places. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so. Okay, we'll have to touch base, Larry, okay?
I'll get with you before the next meeting.
That's next week.
Oh, maybe I won't.
Monday.
Yeah.
And the original one has passed, and this is an amendment at the request of town council and our town attorney to tweak a few things. And as long as we're doing that, this would be an excellent opportunity to also do your concern about, okay?
Okay.
All right.
I mean, the whole idea is to open this up to talk about uses, so
Yeah.
that's exactly what we're talking
Yeah.
about. So-
Yeah, and I do. Yes, I'd be very interested in learning more about that. Does anyone else have any comments on that before we move on?
Larry, you're probably right. That's probably why this was taken out of our code to begin with, is because it's 99% public lands and Virgin didn't want to regulate public lands any farther than they were already being regulated. There's a pretty good question whether we even have the authority to do it. Which is probably no.
And And I'm thinking that, you know, public land doesn't always remain public land, that occasionally it becomes
Correct.
private. And at that point, I understand we have to do something with it, but I think that's kind of what the general plan is. I mean, this public or the open space is probably half of the real estate in the town of Virgin. So if our general plan had a map with an overlay that said, if this ever does go private, we would like rural residential here, or we'd like, you know, whatever, commercial or highway resort or whatever it happens to be, that should be on our general plan map in case that property goes private.
Future land use map, yeah.
Right, a
Right.
future land.
Karen.
And open space is a great idea. I love it, but if I owned a piece of property that was a section of land and my only thing I can do on it was allow people to hike and bike on it, that would be you couldn't even pay for your property taxes with that. Even if you're charging for hiking and biking. So I think we need to be reasonable with the future land use map when we look at the town as a whole.
Christian, can you throw up the town boundary map? Can you, I'm wondering about this where BLM land is, whether or not it's within city limits or not. And for example, over by the BMX park, Lofton Lodge can't be on outside around the BMX park, and I'm trying to wonder whether it's on.
That's, yeah.
That's
That's
BLM.
still on within that.
If it's, is it BLM, where's the town boundary?
It's on the other side of the.
For you, not right.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Back of your house, straight across, Ken.
so,
Do a line straight to the east and west, that would be where,
So the dark green feeling.
so I think my property is right here.
yep, and so you
Yeah,
got
that's
a
you.
couple of properties right behind you, and then it's straight east and west.
And that's our town boundary.
So this line right here is the town boundary.
Correct.
So my question to Cameron is, there's quite a bit of camping. Here's the BMX park.
Yeah.
Quite a bit of camping that goes on around here. And across the street. Down along that riparian area where the, irrigation water,
That's the other,
you know,
that's, that's,
flows. Across
that's,
Is that in town boundary?
Right here.
You go up a little bit.
you can see, there's a sign there that says.
So here we're into Danny Fields, and that's in the town boundary. And I'm.
That's not quite the Danny Fields.
All of this is. So. Can, the BLM does allow 14-day camping. And I'm out there helping them monitor that.
Yeah.
Can the town says you can't camp within city limits. Who has authority?
The fence.
Okay, even in town boundary.
Yeah,
They can require, they can say, we don't care what your,
that's why when we changed to that just dispersed camping with actual campsites out on, that was a collaborative effort. That the town had to initiate with the BLM to get done. So if the BLM, by law, if they want to make changes to that area and the uses there, if they wanted to make that dispersed campsites like out there, then they have to go through a whole process that involves public hearings, it involves studies, involves a whole train of things. Like, you know, whether the BLM would be angry about us enforcing something is, who knows, but if someone complained, they would probably have to step in and say, no, we allow 14-day camping and we were not going to stop them.
so we had that issue on Sheep Ridge.
We had that issue on Chiefs Bridge Road, and there was a collaborative effort to get that changed. It took almost 2 years.
Well, and they're a new effort underway. It's huge, gonna be a huge change, especially on Highway 9. There's gonna be moving away from dispersed to, we're reducing the amount of dispersed, closing off a lot of the dispersed, and there was just the first public input into that. And, I know the guy asked this question. Maybe I can reach out to that, you don't have that, you can reach out to your, you don't have that.
I used the wrong term. Dispersed camping is what's going on
Correct.
up where he is. They moved from dispersed to the actual campsite.
Dispersed,
But
that's the designated dispersed.
This designated campsite, that is a long process. It took about 2 years to get that done on Chief Bridge Road. And that was also because the BLM also wanted it done.
Yeah. I have a note. We, to work with Larry, contact you on another good point. Want to compliment, Bill Gates. So, all right, okay, so we're gonna move on to item 3. And that is, Title 16, Chapter 16. These are conditional use process updates. And, Lee, do you want to go over, start the discussion by going over the changes for me? They're pretty minor. I added to the title as, Tom suggested. On page 3, line 116. Well, I just put in a statement that encouraged the commission to move quickly on deciding whether something qualifies as, low impact. At its first regular meeting following the receipt of the complete application. That's, yeah. So there's a time limit for word on that, and I believe that was in response to concerns about eating up time for the business person or developer. And, line 319. Oh, removed exterior lighting, because there are some things in the lighting ordinance about interior lighting, but I don't know what they might be. And refer to the municipal code instead of the zone, because the zone is not what the lighting ordinance is. Page 11. Minimizing the traffic was too big. So your comments, what else just good? Are you with me? 379? Okay. After discussion here, change that to say minimizing any traffic flows which are disruptive to neighboring uses. Page 399, remove neighborhoods, which made no sense. And then line 416. Avoid redundancy of use is what it used to say, but I added adjusting as town grows, because obviously, yeah, you want to revisit it sometimes when you, someday we might need 10 gas stations, I don't know. Anyway, those are the changes. And those changes were all made based on our work meeting discussions. And input from public. Yeah. All right. Larry, did you hear those?
Yes.
Okay. Does any commissioner have any further comment or questions about this? Absolutely. Do you want to have a word about it?
So. From my reading of this, taking 100 feet. Of commercial property that's adjoining or abutting rural residential or other residential properties is being rezoned to this other zone? Is that this one?
No, this is the one that has the, low impact CUP.
This is just the low impact CUP.
Yeah.
Combined with the other.
Right. That one's not on the agenda tonight.
No. It's on our discussion. I have a question for you.
Okay.
On page 7, under after line 252, item 3. Were those new additions or they? I just want to make sure they were new.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question. I'm here.
252, line 252 through 255, items 3 and 4. Those weren't changed, those, and that's why they aren't highlighted, correct?
I'm sorry, those, say that again. Okay,
Line 252
got that,
through 255,
got that.
I'm just clarifying.
That
There
what?
may be a non-issue. They aren't highlighted because those are not new changes. Those were in the previous. Here, correct?
No. No, see, before that, line 234, it shows you what was there.
I know, but when we heard this ordinance prior,
Oh,
these were in there.
right, yes.
I just wanted to make sure
Sorry.
that if something should have been highlighted, it was highlighted.
Okay,
All right, okay. We talked about this one a lot.
Yes.
And, I have no further questions or comments myself. Larry?
I do. Yes, I do. So we have discussed this a lot, and I know I've been I have my opinion on this, and I hope I can get people to understand why I'm taking the stance. There's several things on here that are a great idea, and they should apply to all commercial uses and not be a conditional use. And the problem I have with conditional uses is that if you're a developer and you're looking for property in Virgin and you wanted to build a restaurant, which has now been pulled off the permitted use rolls and turned into a conditional use, even if you're going to give free food to all the residents of Virgin, you still have to go through the conditional use permit. So it would be great for the town, but you'd have to go through this process. And the conditions or the requirements of the conditional use that are added in here are almost impossible to do without spending a lot of money. So let's say it took me 6 years to find a piece of property in Virgin that was economically viable, had the right location, the right geography. And even then I felt like I overpaid. But if I was to look again today and I had to get a conditional use to build a restaurant, and the requirements are I have to show proof of financial responsibility, which means a commitment letter from a bank. I have to have a set of plans drawn all the way down to landscaping, traffic, do a traffic study. And there's a whole list of site plans, fence plans, screening, landscape, vehicle circulation patterns, automobile loading area, setbacks, walkways. So for my little project, the retainer from the architect was 25 grand. And I didn't start it because my project was a conditional use. And I tried for a year to get that off the conditional use rolls, and it's still a conditional use. So I'll probably do something different because I'm not going to spend the 25 grand to have a set of plans drawn. That's going to take me 6 months and try to find a bank that's going to say, yes, I'll loan you the money without showing them those plans before I can even submit. You know, I'm looking at 6-8 months, and then I could be denied. And if you hadn't bought a piece of property yet, and you wanted to build a restaurant and it was conditioned use, then you'd have to convince the seller to either allow you to go through the process and not sell it to anybody else while you're doing this, because you're going to invest 100 grand in plans and engineering and studies before you can even come to the the table, then that guy's probably not going to do that. The seller's not going to say, I'm not giving you a year, 6 months, 8 months, a year for this process without a large non-refundable deposit. So you're going to have plans, you might have $100,000 deposit, or you might have to buy the land before you can even get started, and then still have the possibility of being denied. The alternative is, I'm going to build a restaurant, and here are all the concerns that we have, whatever they are, that would apply to this restaurant. And I know before I spend a dime, before I even make an offer on that property, what it's going to take to build that project. And the conditions aren't given to you until after you submit these plans and you've given them all these beautiful drawings to scale. And so I feel like instead of moving things to the conditional uses, set standards for required or for permitted uses. And I think the streamlined process should be the process for conditional use. Asking somebody for a full set of plans and proof of financial responsibility for any project before they have approval is, or at least a tentative approval is saying, don't build here. It's exactly what it says. It says, don't spend your money here because it's probably not going to get what you want, or it's awful risky. So, I've been outspoken about this every time we've talked about it. And I may be in the minority, but I'm hoping that people listen and understand that if this passes, it effectively would probably eliminate commercial use. So all these properties worried about converting to commercial would probably be really tough to get somebody to. And if it says in here we're trying to encourage locally owned businesses, well, what you're doing is encouraging outside money, big money, to come in here and develop instead of. I couldn't risk $100,000 in plans and engineering, hoping to get the project that I was originally proposing done. So I'll probably just go look at something that's permitted, or keep it as a house. It's we've got to consider more than. I mean, it sounds great, and there's a lot of things on here that again should be on our permitted use requirements, but having to go through a process is unreasonable.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, it does sound burdensome when you read all the steps you have to go through, but there really shouldn't be any difference between the process to get a conditional use and the process to get a permitted use, except that there may be a condition, an extra condition put on it if you have some sort of topographic or locational problem. Otherwise, it's not like a conditional permit can just be denied. I mean, that doesn't happen without, a really good, strong reason. We don't have the option to say no to a conditional use permit. And so all those things, the plans and that stuff, and I don't think they have to be as fancy as you could imagine them being by reading this ordinance. But
a geotechnical study, a professional traffic study, a fiscal impact analysis, a utility capacity study, that's probably $30,000 right there before you even know if you can do what you want to do. If all these requirements are and I'm not saying we shouldn't require these things, but it should be on our permitted uses, not on our conditional uses, so that, again, when a developer or a local resident who wants to build a restaurant like George, if you told him it was conditional use today, that we may not have that restaurant. And maybe some people would be happy about that. I don't know. I enjoy having a restaurant in town, and I enjoy going to listen to live music there. But it'd be a shame if we scared away local residents because we had such onerous requirements on the process or in the process. But if you knew that what you're proposing is a permitted use, you feel a lot more comfortable spending the money on those studies.
I
Prior
don't
to
really
submittal.
see a difference there. I don't think that I mean, it still goes through the same process, whichever. You still have to do all the same things. I think that.
I don't, there's nowhere in our code right now that says I have to prove financial responsibility or give you a professional geotechnical utility or study if I wanted to open a Jeep tour business. But the conditional use process says we do. So I think some of these things are too onerous. And some of the things in this are not on the application, but on the requirements should be, you know, I don't care if it's a restaurant or a daycare, you know, there should be sound restrictions or noise restrictions, and there should be, you know, traffic studies done, no matter what the business is. Just because it's a restaurant doesn't mean that we're going to allow it to be louder or not louder than any other business. I think we should have a set of standards for all businesses. You know, we have a decibel level, a time frame. Maybe we outlaw trash trucks at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. I know my residential trash guy picks up at 5 a.m. and it's maddening, but we don't have a town ordinance that says you can't, so they're going to keep doing it. So if those are issues we want to try to take care of, we should do it as part of our permitted use process and just have town ordinances that take care of all the concerns that we might have. I'm not sure what we're trying to mitigate on a restaurant that is any different than any other business.
Karen, public health is.
Cameron's notice.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Keep going.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, the requirements on a restaurant for noise and odors or whatever requirements that you think we might want to add to a restaurant should be the same for every business.
The 80%. But,
Can I just say what this ordinance does is not any of those things you're talking about. This is trying to make a path for it to be easier. And I think that what you are objecting to is the part that makes certain uses conditional that are listed as permitted right now. And I don't know how everybody else feels, but I'd be happy to remove that section, the section one of the ordinance.
The section would be everything from line 195 to 232 and leave it the way it was for the conditional use process. It was a much simpler process than what we've got lined up here. There was no, you know, you have to, you know, I could pay an architect a few grand and have them draw some scale drawings and a tentative plat map to kind of show you what I'm thinking. But if I've got to show a landscape plan, a site plan, the building plan, screening, landscaping, vehicle circulation patterns, automobile parking and loading areas, setbacks, walkways, open spaces, permanent signs, none of these things are going to be decided or a lot of this isn't going to be decided until way late in the design process and prior to permit application. But now we're requiring it to even get them to the point where they can submit for.
I think that's already in our ordinance.
that's already in our ordinance.
Not as
Standard stuff.
So if I heard you correctly, you said line 195?
Yeah, if you look at the application for the old application for a CUP, it's much simpler than the new application. And instead of streamlining, we're streamlining the simple one, and the simple one, in my opinion, should be permitted, not even a CUP process. And then the standard one, we've added some pretty
The
strict.
standard one, items 1 through 7 are exactly the same.
Yeah, I don't have a
And
problem
the
until
development
7.
Plan is in the old one as well. And it is the same. It's the same. That's our current code, right?
Yeah, it's okay. We could look at that for changes, but
Yeah.
that's not what this does.
No, Cameron's been patiently waiting.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, you're fine. If we're going to make a streamlined process for specific non-encumbering uses, then it has to be. This, in my opinion, doesn't do that. This may make some slight changes around the edges, but really does not make the conditional use process or conditional use permit application process much easier. So if the goal is to make a streamlined process for specific easier uses, I'm for that. I don't see this doing that. I do like the addition of the time frame. That helps a little bit. But you're still looking at a minimum of 2 months for someone to wait to do this. Most likely because you're going to have them come and present, you're gonna make a determination whether it is or isn't a simple one, and after that determination, you're gonna have time to consider the conditional uses. There's another month. So I just don't, if you're gonna have a streamlined process, I just don't think this goes far enough to make it streamlined. I agree with Larry. It's really hard and it is much more expensive to go through a conditional use process than it is to do a permit and build. For one, you have a time frame problem. If your use is permitted, you work with full-time staff who are in the office every day, or they meet often, or they meet as needed, and you go right through the process. For a conditional use process, you're dependent on the scheduled meetings of the planning and zoning commission. And then these conditional uses, they just go on and on and on. I cannot even tell you how long I think that the conditional use process for the Fairfield went on for. I think that was forever. And the conditional use process for the RV park, the old one, that one went on forever too. And so all that time is expense, interest expense, loss of revenue expense. It's expensive. And so to say that the conditional use is the same as permitted in cost is just not, it's not true. Conditional use is much more expensive. That's not even to mention that at the end, you may not get denied, but you may get hit with a dozen or 2 dozen additional requirements that now you have to go back to your architect and you have to get changes made to your plans and you have to go back to your engineer and you have to get changes made to those. And then you have to bring those forward and make sure that those are appropriate and acceptable. So there's more time, more effort, more money. And so the conditional use permit is more expensive. That's not to say that it doesn't have its place, because it does. Conditional uses do have their place. That's pretty limited circumstances in my opinion. So I do disagree wholeheartedly with the changing of any of these permitted uses to conditional. Without the support of, good solid understanding of why they need to be changed back. So I do disagree with that. I like the concept of this. I just don't think this makes a streamlined process. That's where I'm at on this.
Okay, I don't imagine. I totally agree that this is onerous. That's why I started thinking about it, but, I think that's a different issue. It's not what I was trying to address, was the details of what this application has to be, and I almost feel like somebody other than us would be the right person to figure that out. Right now, there's a new, ordinance in our folder called site plan standards or something.
Yeah, I haven't read that.
Anyway, I don't know who asked for it, but I think Riker has worked on it and maybe.
And the town engineer.
As a town engineer. And so, I mean, maybe a lot of that stuff could go away. I don't mind saying instead of planning commission, I don't know about how everybody else feels about it. Instead of planning commission, to say, the community development director do the easy ones. Which would avoid the waiting for a couple weeks for a meeting, but.
So, listening to Larry's and Cameron's comments and yours, I'm just wondering, is what we're trying to address with the low impact CUP having consistent standards for certain types of development? And as Larry pointed out, a lot of those might be very similar. Very similar. And how can, I just wonder, how can we use the LICA application, there's 1 through 5s, as the basis for building that kind of standard for permitted uses? I mean, I think that's where this is. This was like a placeholder, this is my understanding, I could be totally wrong. This is a placeholder until we got those standards in the other part of the ordinance. That's what I understand. And that, as, let's say, when we got it done for, since we keep talking about restaurants, the restaurant, right? Then it would be removed from this and it would be permitted.
Yeah.
And those standards would live in chapter 8.
8 and 16,
And
16, 16, remember we
Yeah.
changed the title 16, so that would apply to everything.
So you don't have to go back and forth. But I'm just wondering, because Larry, if you're still there under the low impact CUP 1606, line 178, item 2. And then, the identifiers under 1 and 2 above that, just that doesn't, I don't know. Larry, you own the business. That list of 5 things doesn't seem super onerous to me. Sorry, I was away from my mic there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's better.
Yes,
Okay. Do you understand what I'm trying to say there?
yeah, we're pulling, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 things from permitted use to conditional use. And my thought is, obviously somebody put thought into this and thought there might be some issues with those 4 or 5 uses. Let's list them, let's mitigate them, and let's make an ordinance for it so that the potential user, I think we can do it just as quickly as this 300 line ordinance to get this hammered out. We could probably just come up with conditions for those. And again, I think they should be town-wide. Whatever we're concerned about with a brewery should be the same thing we're concerned about with a daycare, with a bike rental, or whatever. If it's traffic, if it's noise, if it's whatever it is, we should have town standards that address that. And they may vary from zone to zone, but I think that makes much more sense than taking things off the permitted rolls and putting them on the conditional use rolls. And I know that I've said this and we've gone to the same meetings and nobody, I don't think, Darlene, you said you'd never heard it, but the Utah League of Cities said, that they encourage each town to take anything that was a conditional use, come up with the potential issues, the same ones you'd come up with if somebody applied for a conditional use, and create solutions and make that your code so that there isn't this legislative process to get a building permit for something that should be administrative. You know, well in advance before you even make a deposit on a piece of property, or God forbid you do like I do and you buy the property. You know, like the average commercial property for sale in Virgin now is probably $2 million. So if you were to finance that, you'd have like a $7,000 a month interest payments while you're working on your $50,000 plans before you can
And
even submit
I
to.
hear that. I hear that point, but I do think there is a place for conditions.
Yes, there is. I agree.
also hear,
I agree. And there,
I'm just kind of looking at on that same page 5, that 1 and 2, and how that could be our basis for a general standards for all projects. For what? All projects. All permitted projects. And that would mean, because it takes in, and we could add, because I do think if you're, especially if you're near a residential area, you've got to consider noise and all those kinds of things. Yeah, and you can't identify everything, but there are some uses that would definitely increase noise, definitely increase even odors, you know?
Right.
And
I mean, maybe we would not have those uses near a residential.
And that's another excellent point.
Yeah, you don't have to do that.
So, Lee, what would you like to do with this? Would you like?
I have no intention of changing the nuts and bolts of the standard conditional use permit process. I agree, it's hard. I'm not sure I'm qualified. I don't know that we are qualified to trim that down to what really is needed. But we could get answers from the DRC or from our engineer or from whatever. I mean, there are things that larger uses are going to have to prove and go to the DRC and do all that stuff. I'm not talking about those uses. I'm talking about smaller ones that we can,
So this is not going to do anything to change our existing conditional use.
not the standard ones, and just allow for streamlined ones.
That was my understanding. So,
And I'm willing to remove section 1 of this ordinance. And that is the one that makes some uses conditional, and that used to be permitted, that are now permitted.
So the CUP application in this folder is different than the one we have online. The one that we have online is, you wouldn't have to spend the amount of money you would have to spend if we adopted this new application process.
so Larry, there is a before and after of each section of code, and that's what I compared. So the current code precedes any new changes in each section of this. I believe it's in blue if you printed it out.
Except for section 1, yeah,
Except for
so
section.
they're all before and after.
So and just in my case, I'm probably not going to spend the money to create a project that would create employee housing, because there's a chance that it could be denied. And I've already held this property for a year, hoping that we could eliminate that. And I would know, because we set standards for that mixed use, and why it became conditioned again, I'm just baffled. But I will probably just go to a commercial unit instead of, and then my the guy that owns the Jeep Tour business now will have to go find housing elsewhere, which is unfortunate, but that's what this does to
Oh, you're
potential
talking
business
about
owners.
the work that the town council changed live work to be conditional? Is that what
Yes,
you're talking-
yes.
Oh, okay. Now I
No,
understand.
my whole purpose on that was to make it a permitted use by setting the standards in advance, exactly like we should be doing on all these things that we think should be conditioned. Setting the standards, we did, and they still made it a conditional use. So that is a deal killer. So I don't know if anybody realizes that's making these decisions, but it's a big deal. I mean, again, for me to spend $25,000 on a set of plans that could be denied, I won't do it. You know, I'll spend the 25 grand on a set of plans that I know are permitted.
So you think that you could be denied if you went and asked for a conditional use permit for a live work?
Why would there be a conditional use permit if there wasn't a chance of denial? You know, we've already set the standards.
That's what confuses people. Conditional does not mean that the council or that the town, that the commission or the council can decide whether or not to give it. All it
I
means-
understand. I've read it. I know what a conditional use is, and the conditions have to be reasonable, but then I could spend a year in court fighting what's reasonable. Reasonable could be, we don't like the floor plan of your apartment because it's not conducive to whatever. So now I got to go back and pay my architect to redraw it and pay my engineer to re-engineer it. But if there is no chance of unknown conditions, then I will spend the money on that project. But there are unknowns in a conditional use permit. Otherwise, it would just be a permit.
All right, Karen?
So Lee is right, additional permit should not be denied. That does not mean that they cannot be denied or that they won't be denied. And yeah, if you're a small business person, that risk, no matter how small that is obviously enough to deter people from wanting to do it. Just because it shouldn't be done doesn't mean it won't be done. And if you're small and you don't have the money to fight it in court, then that's it. I mean, they can just do it. So everyone's kind of right here, and I think everyone's kind of just speaking past each other, it shouldn't be denied, but it can be denied. You have to factor in that risk when you're making business decisions. And, the smaller the business, the higher that risk is.
Sense. What if we were to name some businesses that are conditional, but state right up front in the ordinance that they qualify for a limited low impact? Like, I think that makes sense, and some things really do have low impact, and there's no reason we shouldn't do that. Yeah. Well, be another category.
I'm thinking this is not ready.
Okay.
Correct. But I appreciate the conversation. I made some notes about some different kinds of approaches. And, it could very well be that we can make one work. A quick one.
By expressly a low impact.
Because, yeah, I caught that very, I was sitting in that meeting and I'm going, wait a minute. What happened? So,
Okay,
all right, so we're gonna take last of this time, is that okay?
yeah,
I'm on the table, but I do think this approach that you were thinking about taking with making certain ones low impact, I believe this was looked at before And it was not. It was abandoned for some reason of law
Oh.
or legal reason, if I recall correctly. So we should look at that
Should
before we
be
spend,
investigation.
yeah, before we spend much time
Okay.
looking into doing that. And I don't remember when that was, it's just what comes to my mind.
Okay, I think I know you're talking about.
Yeah, but lots to think about. Well, our last item is an ordinance updating, clarifying and amending various sections of the Virgin Municipal Code Title 16, Chapter 8, Supplementary 3, and qualifying regulations to add language for limited two-family dwellings and to amend sections on building height exceptions, water and sewer requirements, land suitability, and height of accessory buildings. Based on our previous discussion, the things that were changed were the title. And line lot standards, that, line 93 that says, in no event shall more than 3 two-family dwellings be permitted. And these are minor changes, that's why it didn't have to be based on our discussion at our meeting, the work meeting. No more than 3 sets of two-family dwellings per acre, unless the use would be connected to a public or private sewer system. Another change that was made is about the language of contaminant, which is line 101. You want to explain that one?
Did you just hit?
Line,
I'm not finding anything in the evidence. I seem not.
this would be our work meeting folder.
Okay.
It is line number 93, lot standards, and then under that 96. And then under that, go down to
Did you say
100, 100, line 100, 100.
This is not in the work.
It's in our public meeting.
Okay.
Line 100.
Oh, a contradiction.
No, I just, can you explain
Oh,
the change? Oh, I know.
okay.
One hundred. This is the beginning of your map. What, your question is about what? So where it is written. And it's talking about on line 100, if there's a 4, 99, there's a 4. Shall be a minimum of 1 acre in size and must cluster with other uses when contiguous sufficient open space is dedicated. And then you have highlighted to the average contaminant output of 1 area per acre overall, except that density may be increased to allow up to 4 limited two-family units dwellings by the land use authority. That section changed.
I just added the average contaminant output of, instead of just 1 BRU, because that's how we're measuring it now, instead of just saying, go to some table, but it's that way, if you have a fancy sewer or septic system, that produces less contaminant per person, then you're going to be able to have more density.
And then I have a question of clarification. item number 2, about standards, we talk about, no more than 3 two-family dwellings. But here, it says to allow up to 4 limited two-family dwellings.
Yes. That's some sort of error. We should,
It should have been.
it
3.
should match, right?
Yes, okay,
I think.
all right, so that is one thing I noticed.
Okay, we should talk about which it should say.
And then, the building height was changed to 22 feet on line 108, based on our discussion. And I believe that's from 20 feet, was changed to 22 feet. And number 2, sale, it originally was 3,000 square feet, and it is, that was changed to 4,000 based on our discussions, kind of a compromise. So, for 15% of the parcel, which area is smaller. So that's line 109, you see that?
Yeah,
Okay, so those are the whys behind those changes. And then based on Karen's question about gray water, we clarified that, and that's line 166. If allowed under state code, allowed by the terms of the town contracts and reviewed by the sewer authority.
does that work, Ken? Yeah.
I mean,
Do you want me to read that again?
the only way someone can use a gray water system is if they have water rights.
If they have what?
Water rights.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You have to have water rights to use gray water in the state of Utah.
Okay,
Because in Utah, water belongs to the state.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's still, that works, I guess. It's not going to apply very often.
Used for subsurface irrigation for single family residents. Yeah. Okay. In other words, large patches of grass and, yeah. Okay. Now this one, I would like to put up for vote, and then, so we need to just move it on to, the town council, and they can decide what to do from there. We had a good discussion, we made some changes, and we'll allow for some final comments on these changes, and then if anybody's interested, we can have a motion and vote. So is there anyone who would like
got
to
some-
comment? Larry?
I've got some questions.
Sure.
So originally I thought this was for commercial zone, or is this just in the overlay zone?
It's all chapter 8, it's just in chapter 8.
This would not make it a permitted use in any zone or conditional use in any zone. This is only laying out regulations regarding two-family homes.
Correct.
So it could be in any zone? Is that what?
This does not determine that. That would be in another ordinance.
There are other standards in chapter 8 that apply everywhere, so, that's, was just where it got put.
Does that answer your question, Larry?
Yeah, I typically, I thought we were talking about this being in a commercial zone only, but I'm okay with it in other zones. I just it was unclear to me.
Yeah, that's not the,
And,
this is more of those standards we were talking about.
and then my next question, I guess, is if I was to rent my personal home, like I moved out and bought a new house and rented my home out, I don't have to get a business license or a permit from the city or sign an affidavit to rent my home. I don't understand why we would put more requirements on two-family homes as opposed to a single-family home, and require that they get a permit to rent it. We already have laws and a code enforcement guy that should be enforcing those laws about vacation rentals in vacation rental zones. So whatever we're doing with that should apply here.
Well, the whole, I don't know, starting point of this was, a way to potentially increase, long-term rentals.
Right.
That's
And
where this comes from.
right. And then we just say that all you can do is do long-term, no rentals less than 30 days. And then
We already say that.
enforce it. Right. Instead of requiring, I mean, you're still going to enforce it the same way, I would guess, as whether you require them to get a business license or a permit and then have them get another permit if they sell it. If I sold my house and there was an existing lease on it, a new buyer is subject to that existing lease. He can't change it until that lease expires. So if I was to have a duplex with a lease and the town decided that they didn't want to renew that permit, then now we're in a legal situation. So I think we just enforce the rules that are already on our books and not require any special permitting to rent out your duplex.
The town's always required a business license if you have a rental. I mean, I had to buy a business license every year for my.
I didn't realize that. I've owned rentals for 35 years maybe, and I've never got a business license to rent out one of my houses.
For short-term rentals, we use, but not for long-term.
I did it for 20 years.
Well, you were also not just renting out a house either,
True.
right? Yours was a little bit different. So, I agree with him on this point, right? So it would make sense to require an affidavit, and a business license. If and only if this was in a commercial area that allowed for short-term rentals. Or a commercial area at all, right? So if you're putting multifamily housing into a commercial zone, they should be required to get a business license, not because of the use, but because of the zone that it's in. It would make sense to sign an affidavit if that commercial zone allowed for short-term rentals and you were specifically restricting this to long-term. It doesn't make sense to put this in a generalized standard, in chapter 8. Now, if those would need to be specified in chapter 40 if you wanted to put them as specific standards for that zone.
Well, if you read the introduction to this 8.07, with the two-family dwellings, it does mention the village overlay, which is on our discussion for next week, along with what we said. Discussing. So
This is, I think it's a good idea for us to adopt standards for all sorts of uses into whatever chapter they belong in, either 8 or 16, where general standards go that apply to a given use, and you can look up the use you're doing and find out exactly what applies, no matter, I mean, there might be differences by zone, but the difference by zone should be mentioned only in the zone. And so,
I agree with you on that, I'm saying the same thing, I think, as you are, but this is a generalized standard, and some of these standards that I see listed in here in this chapter 8 seem more specific to me, to a commercial zone. So, for example, if at some point in the future, multifamily was added to residential zone, say, they should not have to sign this affidavit, and they should not have to get a business license for a rental in a residential zone. So all I'm saying is some of these generalized standards that are here seem like they should be specific standards maybe for the village overlay zone. It's a little bit confusing because, as you say, the title does recognize the village overlay zone.
right,
But this specifically is just going in chapter 8.
And actually, section 1 points out that this section should be removed in any motion to recommend or adopt if the village overlay has already been adopted. And it also exists in that. And so it would be
to the same exact section is in that.
So and I'm just a little puzzled because we just got through talking about the way to avoid problems is to have clear standards. And this is some clear standards in a specific zone. And
Yeah, those standards are already there.
It just seems like a contradiction.
The idea is that hopefully
These are
it's going
those
to be
clear
permitted use, so.
I think again, we're talking past each other. I'm not saying that it's not good to have clear standards. What I'm saying is that some of the standards outlined here do not make sense as a generalized standard.
And I'm trying to point out that they're not listed in this ordinance as a generalized standard. There's the section 1 note and the 8.07 intro make that point.
Do you have a suggestion of what standard do you think doesn't fit in certain zones?
Specifically, I don't think that a business license is required for a long-term rental in a residential zone.
What if you don't live there, but you have 4 two-family homes in a row and that's what you make your living on? You think you don't need a business license then?
Not to rent out duplexes. You could go up here to this duplex, but they don't have a business license to rent their duplex out.
Okay.
I mean, if you're doing an apartment complex, yes. But if you're just doing multifamily housing, I don't think that requires a business license when it's in a residential zone. If you're in a commercial zone, yeah, it's a commercial zone. And then the other one that I don't think
Where
applies.
does it mention business?
It talks about a business license and an agreement to make sure that they don't do short-term rentals, which is all good things, unless I'm mistaken.
Not in this ordinance.
On
There's
this
no-
one, you have to go to the planning commission to get permission to rent out your duplex after it's completed. But if I built a single family home
For
and
an
rented it out,
initial use, a request for initial use permit is made to the Virgin Planning and Zoning Commission. If granted, no renewals are required unless and until ownership has changed. However, the use permit may be revoked for violations of Title 16 Virgin Land Use Regulations, state or federal law. I don't see business license mentioned here.
so yeah, I'm not worried about a business license. It's just having to go to the planning commission to rent out this duplex. I don't understand why it would be different for a duplex than it would be for a single family home that I can rent without ever talking to anybody at the city and never have to get a planning commission approval to do so. And if I had a long-term lease and sold that property, then there could be legal issues if the town didn't renew my permit because
So-
something changed. So I think we say that they're for long-term rentals only, just like we say in residential zone or in commercial zone right now. It says you can only have long-term rentals. I don't think that we need to have the planning commission involved in that process or require them to get a business license or a permit to rent out the duplexes, especially if we've given them a permit to build a duplex. I mean, we have to know that that's what they're going to do with it.
My apologies if I was mistaken and
That's
thinking of a
okay.
different.
I was just wondering, because I was reading, I was just reading. it.
I don't have it.
Yeah, and I'm reading from both. So
And
but
so
I know
Lee-
there's two on the table now.
Yeah, Lee, what was your intent on that application section?
I mean,
No,
there's no process getting to the point where people in this town are actually going to allow for duplexes. And, I am excited that that's finally happening. But, I know that people are nervous about it, and so I thought we would be as careful as we can.
So would this be something that,
It's to make sure people understand that they can't vacation rent it.
And I have no idea or no problem making that clear. I want people to know that that's the intention is a long-term rental, and that could be a condition on their building permit that these are long-term rentals only. But to have to wait for a planning commission meeting to get my license or whatever permit to occupy it, and then have to do it again if I sell it, or have the new buyer have to do it again when I sell it. But I won't have to do that in a single family residence or a commercial unit.
You understand, but I can't, I'm afraid I can't hear you very well, I'm sorry.
I apologize.
um,
And one more item. I know I've probably beat this to death, but there are ways to mitigate the wastewater, even in the town of Virgin. If we can get 11 vacation rentals on the 9 and have a septic system engineered that was approved by Ash Creek to do so, I think our only requirement should be that you can have those 4 duplexes or 3 duplexes as long as you provide engineered drawings that show that and get approval from Ash Creek, who is our body politic, who is the expert in that field, unlike us. If they can say, yes, they're designed and are building a system and we've inspected that system and we approve that system and it will be less waste hitting the river than the standard septic system in the town already, then I feel like that's all we need to say and not limit the numbers until somebody connects to city sewer. If there is a way, and obviously there are, because we have RV parks and hotels and.
and how is number 4 different?
What's that?
How's number item 2 for line 99 different from what you just said?
So we're saying whatever this is, the equivalent of 1 ERU per acre. Why not just say, as long as whatever you build on that property does not exceed the amount of nitrate, or whatever it is we're trying to protect against, whatever that is, as long as your sewer system does not exceed that, but calling it a ERU, which, I don't know what that means or what that impact is, or what, if the idea is to eliminate waste getting into the river or into the groundwater, and you can design a system that would accommodate 3 duplexes on your 1 acre lot, and it won't affect the groundwater any worse than a single family home would, whatever that output is.
No, that says, that's what this says.
You
is
didn't
that-
read the 1 and 2 under 4.
Yeah. The idea is to treat everyone equally, so that somebody doesn't come in and put in a bunch of vacation rentals, and then the next guy comes in and can't build a house until there's a sewer system. So whether or
it's
not
not-
the ground under that particular project will hold it according to, of course, I mean.
That is
they
not a
want-
standard. That's never been a standard because your neighbor septic system is leaking, you would never be denied a permit on your property if you could handle your sewage in your own septic system. You wouldn't be denied a permit because your neighbor's septic system is leaking. That's not, I've never seen that in any code anywhere. And I don't know where it would be in the town of Virgins. If your neighbor's exceeding their output, you can't build. That's not, doesn't make sense.
I don't understand what you're saying. No, it's the output of the system that you put in is what's to be measured. It doesn't have anything to do with anybody else. It's just everybody gets the same amount of contamination into the ground.
Right, so if it makes economic sense for me to put in, just as hypothetical, 11 vacation rentals, and I can design a sewer system that would accommodate that and not affect the groundwater, and the health department signs off and Ash Creek signs off, then we don't need to put in all the, in no event shall there be more than 3 two-family dwellings. It should be.
I disagree on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know what you are. We've always disagreed on this, and I think the science would prove otherwise. But I just want to make that point again that I think.
It's also the desires of the residents.
Is that what it says in here?
No, but there is a desire to have some two-family dwellings. But there is also, as you clearly heard in the public hearing, not a desire for high density.
So there
It is
is
not just
a large
science.
desire for affordable housing, and the only way you get affordable housing is with density. You can't have affordable housing on a 1 acre lot. So we either change our goals or allow the science to allow for more density. But
I think we have to consider the desires of the community as well. And 6 per acre is a fair amount.
and that's a great amount. I love
Yeah.
that. But that's as if you connect to a sewer system.
And communities have rights to set their standards. That's part of the balancing act here. Like your desires as a developer versus balancing that with the needs and desires of the community. I mean, that's where I come.
Yeah, and I agree with that. So if you're allowed 3 per acre with a private sewer, how is that different? How is that more density than if I could do 3 per acre with a private septic system? Or can I design a private sewer system that doesn't leave the
If you go
property?
ahead, that's why I keep trying to point out to you, line 103-ish, that one and that 2 states exactly what you said. Yes.
So an independent sewer system, could that be one that was engineered and built on site? Or does it have to leave the property in a pipe somewhere?
That would be the public sewer system. Am I correct in that understanding?
It says independent, approved independent. If you have a system on your property, on your 5 acres, and you want to put 15 duplexes on your 5 acres, as long as the output estimated by the science that backs up the construction of your system, the as long as the average output of contaminant is 5 ERUs or less, equivalent to that of 5 homes or less, then you're golden.
All right, that's perfect. So my interpretation of independent sewer system was if somebody privately tapped into Ash Creek and brought a pipe into town and I connected to it. But an independent sewer system, in your opinion, is one that was designed and I could contain on my own property, then I agree. Then that says exactly what I wanted to say, or should say.
Well, Lori B, I think we agree.
Yeah, so 103, if your interpretation is that mine was obviously different. I thought because there was talk of a privately funded sewer line coming into Virgin.
That the
And
public could also access, and
what's that?
that the public could also access. If they so desired.
Yeah, if they so desired.
And
So,
so,
but
Lee, my
does it-
question
does
to
that
you
also
is-
include a independent sewer system that doesn't leave the property? In other words, I don't have to connect to Ash Creek's system. I can design and engineer a septic system. I shouldn't say me specifically, anybody that, I guess that's not my intention, but somebody that wants to build 2 duplexes on an acre, let's say, and they can create an independent sewer system on their property that would handle that, then they would be allowed to do that.
I am, that was my intention.
Okay,
If this doesn't say that,
That was my question, is there a way we can make that?
maybe
clear?
instead of sewer, independent sewer.
how about just, how about,
Septic system, how about
Excuse me,
that?
what did you say?
It should probably be wastewater treatment.
Okay, that.
so yeah, so here's the wording I have. So my wording that I was gonna recommend tonight would be that all dwellings, this is under this code, which shall have a wastewater treatment system approved by Ash Creek and the county health department. And that would be more clear.
I would not.
That's gonna be required anyway.
Yeah, they'll have to do that anyway.
That's required by the county.
It's not necessary to say that here.
Any other questions or comments on anything in this one? This one I would like to put up for a vote.
I would like, Cameron has something to say.
Is that what? Oh, you have, I'm so sorry. I'm so busy making notes and reading.
I'm just trying not to interrupt. Anyway. So, I agree with, what is his name, is leaving my head, Larry. I agree with Larry. I don't think that we need to stipulate the output and limit it to the equivalency. And I know Lee's on, it's a matter of fairness. I don't think we have to be fair with this because it's so limited in area of availability. So I don't think we need to do that. I don't think we should do that. I think we should leave it up to Ash Creek and the health department to determine if it will cause contamination based on the area where it's being built. And if it doesn't, then it can use whatever wastewater treatment system they will recommend or allow. And I do understand that that's not 100% fair. I don't think we have to be 100% fair. With the way this is written, you're pushing everyone to go 3 on an acre because of cost and return on investment. So the way this is written, no one will build 1 to the acre. Because they're gonna have to put in an advanced treatment system, an advanced wastewater treatment system, or hook up to sewer. Even with just one. So they're gonna go ahead and build all three every time because there's a return on investment there.
I wouldn't think that's a bad thing.
I'm not saying that is a bad thing, but if the concern of the citizens is density, you're pushing people to a much higher density with three than if you do have someone who just wants to put one or maybe two, right? So I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying, I'm just throwing that out there. I'll go through my other concerns with this, additionally before I end, because I do have other concerns. So, like I was saying, specifics for specific zones, height. There's no reason why a duplex can't be the same height as the buildings around it. So limiting, two-family dwellings to 22 feet when whatever zone it goes in, if the max height is 25 feet, just, it doesn't seem right to me, so I don't like the 25-foot height limit. Makes sense if you were looking at the commercial zone, because the commercial zone is a 22-foot height limit. But that being said, you leave the height to the zone, not outlined specifically, you're not penalizing this one specifically.
It's also,
Or giving it special treatment.
I just want to say, it's also limited to that with like the idea of a transition
Yeah,
from
this is for the overall,
residential to
so
commercial.
it wouldn't be.
I got you, but this is general standards again, right?
You're right.
General standards.
Yep.
And if you did add this as a conditional or permitted use in commercial, you would already be subject to that height restriction. And then you are limiting the size, okay, so 4,000 square feet. I realize that you upped this from last time. I just cannot fathom why we are requiring this to be smaller than we require houses to be. We allow 4,800 square feet per home of livable space to include any accessory dwelling units. ADUs. 4,800 square feet, why are we making this smaller than a house would be?
Affordability.
Yeah, 800 square feet is, and maybe much difference. So I don't understand that where the extra square foot can really, make a big difference when you're talking about two family, dwellings. I don't like limiting it. I don't like limiting it to 4,000. And then there was one other limiting thing. Oh, and then it says, 4,000 square feet or 15%, whichever is smaller. So if you look at our housing ones, it's 4,800 square feet or 12%, whichever is bigger. So I think you should match our house. And not be smaller. Is there one other item right there that I'm missing? That's right there with those two things.
Shall be for long-term or owner occupancy, if not qualified.
I think that might be it.
I would add short-term rentals.
Yeah, it's not for short-term rentals, I agree.
Shall not create wastewater contaminant output greater than the estimated of a single family dwelling per acre.
Yeah, I already spoke one piece on that, with Larry. I don't think we have to compare. As long as it's not contaminated.
I'll say, I just don't want to contaminate the river or the groundwater any faster than we already will. Because it's gonna, the sooner we have to go to sewer, the more expensive it will be for all of us. I've also been thinking about the fact that there's going to be sewer on substantial amount of property. In fact, the place that we just voted on, the Palmer rezone, I think they want to do some affordable housing, and I think that it's quite likely that they'll want to do more density than wow. Which we need to be ready for.
Well, I think we all know our thoughts. Ken, you've been quiet, do you have anything you want to have?
No, we've hashed it over pretty good. I did ask AI, do towns regularly require permits and licenses for duplexes and multifamily dwellings in residential areas, and it said yes and no, some do, some don't.
Some don't. I'm guessing them. And I mean, the council can make that final decision.
Yeah,
But
they may change our numbers too.
yeah. And the section on two-family dwellings is tied directly to the village code, and that is clearly said in section 1, which is commercial, so that explains the 22 feet in height and that kind of stuff. And did you make a note about to an approved independent sewer or wastewater?
I did. And so I will, I'll move to recommend approval of this ordinance, updating, clarifying, and amending various sections of Virginia's Code Title 16, Chapter 8, supplementary and qualifying regulations to add language related to family dwellings, to amend sections on building height exceptions, water and sewer requirements, land suitability, and height accessory buildings. With one edit on page.
Which one? There were two. There was making it consistent, on, line 102.
I'm gonna finish saying this first and then you tell me what I'm sorry. On line 103, it says dwellings will be connected to an approved independent sewer system. Semicolon, I want to say dwellings will be connected to an approved independent sewer or wastewater system, semicolon. What's the other one?
The line above that, to allow for up to be 3, not 4, two-family dwelling.
Which line is that?
102. It's right above the one.
Okay.
To make it consistent.
So, yes, okay, so I'm going to also amend line 102. There's an underlined part. It says to allow up to 4 limited two-family dwellings. And I'm going to say to allow up to 3 limited two-family dwellings. And that's my motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Larry? Did we lose Larry there?
There, he's just muted.
Okay.
Aye, sorry.
Karen?
No.
Darlene, aye. Ken?
I
Lee? Aye. All right. And with that, my mind is just like full of new directions and ideas after our discussions today. Thank you so much. Thank you, Larry. We will miss you next week.
And I'm sad about it myself because I love work meetings where
Things change, let us know. I will
Yeah.
take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Kent, second.
I second.
Lee, all in favor?
Aye.
I